All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, brought to you by the Heldreds, our holiday edition. Brian, are you feeling Grinchy, Scroogey, or are you like George Bailey-ish today? Where are you at? Where are you at on the
I'm
spectrum
prob
here?
I'm probably closer to Grinch only because I saw him at some brewery I went to
Oh
for
no!
like some Christmas festivities over the weekend. It's not quite Festivus.
Right?
It's not quite the airing of grievances, but I'm feeling fired up for this end of the
Oh yeah.
year episode, Play. Who is
Do you,
that?
do you know who this is?
I don't. Is that the guy from Snoopy from Peanuts?
Charlie Brown? Charlie
Is that
Brown
Charlie Brown?
Christmas?
You want me to be the director of the Christmas play?
You don't know? Have you never seen Charlie Brown Christmas?
No, I've seen like the
Oh,
dancing scenes, but I haven't seen the no.
it's like 22 minutes. Do me a favor. Would you just, this holiday season, just put it on, just, pop some popcorn, you and the girlfriend before you go out for your Christmas parties and your revelry. Enjoy a little classic like this.
What's this? Find the true meaning of Christmas when money, money, money. Spectacular, super colossal neighborhood Christmas lights and display
It gets
contest.
dark.
Lights and display contest. Oh no.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. This is my favorite holiday decoration right here. Chuck.
Chuck
Kids
is
love him.
a
Chuck's
he's a smart
dark.
guy.
It is
Smart guy.
dark. The Charlie Brown Christmas. Charlie Brown's dark.
Here's
What
what I'll
do you
do.
think about that?
I'm gonna interject the 22-minute episode into the middle of this podcast as a sort of intermission. I'm sure we won't get copyright infringement or anything, but that way we all benefit and get to watch it together.
It's a great idea. In this way, because it's better than what we've got on the script. Maybe people. What is your favorite Christmas movie?
I've watched Home Alone 2 maybe 200 times, and my dad cries at the end of it every single time. So
Home
it showed
Alone
me
2?
Home Alone 2 specifically, Lost in New York.
Okay.
So it was a fun family movie. It taught me some life lessons that men can cry and feel emotional at the same time. So I have a strong emotional attachment to it.
That's good. Okay. That's a
What
good,
about you?
It's a Wonderful Life is by far the best Christmas movie, I think, personally speaking. Don't tell me you haven't seen that either, have you?
You and Seth Davis watch it and live tweet it every Christmas.
Seth Davis, I've got that in common with Seth. I didn't know that.
Seth watches it every Christmas and live tweets it as though it was like a basketball game being played. To answer your question, no, I've never watched it.
Okay, all right. So make more popcorn because that's like 2.5 hours. It took 2 hours, a little bit over 2 hours. You're gonna need more popcorn for that, but it's worth it. It's great. Merry Christmas, Emporium. Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter, and a Happy New Year to you in jail. All right, that's enough. I won't do.
Is that the one where the kid gets the tongue stuck on the pole because it's freezing or whatever?
Oh my God. Oh jeez.
This
That's
is a
it.
serious question.
No, it's not a serious question. It's a Christmas story. You haven't seen Christmas Story?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
I've been too busy watching Home Alone 2.
I don't. Where would Home Alone 2 rank in the pantheon of Christmas movies? Is it even in the top 50? It's somewhere below Die Hard. It's a Christmas movie. Home Alone 2.
It's probably one of the 25 greatest movies ever made, period, let alone Christmas. So
I won't look. I won't yuck your yum here. If that's your Christmas movie, that's great. I'm just saying that perhaps A Christmas Story might be one you might want to try. You got like a whole afternoon now on Christmas Eve. You're gonna start with a Christmas Story, a little interlude with the Charlie Brown Peanuts Christmas, and then It's a Wonderful Life. We'll take you right to Christmas. Oh, just put you right in the spirit, man. There you go.
that sounds beautiful. And the fact we are 4 minutes into a podcast and we spent it all talking about Christmas says everything you need to know about Rutgers athletics.
Do you
and
want to talk
entering
about it
the
now?
year.
All right, we're gonna talk. We got 3 topics: the basketball game, the football coaching hire, and the year in review. And so we take some questions. I think we should start with the basketball game because of those 3 things. It might be the most positive. So let's start there. Basketball, a big victory, a last second shot, exciting, spirited win. If we just don't see who it was over, no one will it'll just be like, hey, they beat a better team on a last second shot. There you go. A good job. Tariq Francis had a great game. I mean, they needed this going into the break, a little momentum. Maybe it'll change the feel, the vibes. We're talking vibes now. We don't want to look at analytics. Let's talk vibes with this team. I think overall, when the team wins like that, it's a positive. You going to tell me otherwise?
Well, the result was a gift, very Christmas themed, because Rutgers did not deserve to win that game. And you're right. If you black out the names of the teams that played and you just watch what happened on the court, Rutgers pulled off a huge upset. because they were dominated from opening tip until the last 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Just destroyed. And they were dominated by a team missing its best player. Penn did not have its best player, a guy that's averaging 18 points and shooting 40%. That doesn't matter because Penn was just, again, controlling that game in every facet until they completely melted down in the last 2 minutes and 24 seconds. And their former five-star player, a former top 20 prospect, somehow, some way, had two chances to go to the line, 4 free throws to, at worst, put Penn in a situation where if they give up a 3, it goes to overtime, or at best, you hit the free throws and you win the game. And he misses 3 free throws in 4 attempts. And then Tariq Francis, the hot hand, makes the game-winning shot. Literally everything had to go right in the last 2 minutes and 24 seconds for Rutgers to overcome a huge talent and desire deficit to defeat Penn before Christmas.
I will say this: the one thing you're leaving out, the Rutgers press defense had something to do with that. They really did. I thought that I don't know if that's a discovery, if that's going to work, if that's going to help when they face better competition, but it certainly disrupted Penn, rushed them into making some mistakes. There was a stupid foul that Penn committed during this. I mean, a lot of things. Some of the unraveling when Penn went up, I think 7 with about 2 minutes to go, it looked like it was over. Some of the unraveling was that.
Is it a good sign that Rutgers needs a full court desperation press
I didn't say
to defeat Penn, to overcome a 7-point deficit in the last 2:24 against Penn? Here is the thing. Everything we are saying, to put a little bit of sugar on you know what, is more and more proof of the horrible state that this program is in. And then the fact you go into the post-game press conference and you ask Steve Peichel, not you, I asked Steve Peichel just about the fact that this is the second straight home game, a month apart, where you get destroyed, dominated by a low major team. And he's almost offended that I ask him if he's concerned. And I see this reaction a couple days after Will Wade eviscerates his team after they won by 37 points against Texas Southern. And he treated that like they lost. This game felt like a loss for Rutgers. And we're kind of trying to put the positive spin on the fact, hey, we won. Frankly, I think it's all a little pathetic. And I think it's a really sad state of affairs that this is where the program is at. They should defeat Penn. They should win that game comfortably. I'm going to read just a couple stats to finish off this point. In 2 games against Central Connecticut State, which Rutgers lost to by 13 again, and a game against Penn where they were dominated from start to finish and won on a last-second three-pointer. In 80 minutes of regulation against those 2 teams, how long do you think Rutgers trailed for?
77?
Rutgers trailed Penn and Central Connecticut State for 67 minutes and 18 seconds.
Okay.
Rutgers led for a total of 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Rutgers gave up 25 offensive rebounds and 28 second chance points on 68 misses. Those 2 teams, both of them, without a true center, had rebounded 36.8% of their missed shots. And Rutgers, apparently with some centers on its roster, was going small ball with Bryce Dortch because Emmanuel Bole, despite having 5 inches on any Penn player and such a Connecticut player, is unplayable. He played 6 minutes. It's just, again, not to beat a dead horse here, and understanding where the program and where this team is at. To be in this state against those 2 teams, it's sad. It's really sad.
And that to me, you mentioned it. That to me is the most striking thing there is that, you just don't have a center you can trust to play against this team, and then you're going into the Big Ten, and we're going to see what happened last year. It's basically the same situation where you didn't have a rim protector, but this time you don't have Ace Bailey to make up for it, right? This time you don't have Dylan Harper to make up for it. In some ways, that's how this team last year avoided being just complete disaster. We call it a disaster, but it still won eight Big Ten games. That's the concern. That you just don't have anybody who can play that position. It's just amazing that Rutgers went into this season, and we knew full well. We know what both those guys were. We knew what Emmanuel Bole was. We watched it. We saw it here. And if we didn't know what by fall was, we certainly understood that if he didn't play a minute, at Arkansas and Kansas State, something's missed, something's wrong, right? Those are two Big Ten, those are two big time programs. Something would have happened there if he could have played there. He did not. This is the situation you put them in. Steve Peichel has put him into this situation where Bryce Dorsch he's not big enough. He's a decent player, but look, he's 6'9". He's not a true post center. He can't defend the paint. He's not even that good of a rebounder. I mean, that's just a bad position to put that kid into.
Yeah, and he actually held his own. He had 9 rebounds, 5 blocks, which I was shocked when I saw that on the stat sheet.
I didn't see that. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's good for him. Yeah.
Right. And then the issue is on the other end where he really can't do anything offensively. You're playing, no matter who you play at center, you're playing 4-on-5 offensively. And look, again, we've given this program a lot of leeway as far as NIL being an issue, and we always understand that nuance. My point is that when you lose to Central Connecticut State by double digits and need a miracle to beat Penn at home, NIL, I don't care about NIL. You botched the roster so badly that you're putting yourself in this position, right? It's one thing to not have enough talent because of NIL and you lose games against Big Ten teams, but to be so talent deficient that you're in this position, I mean, that's a humongous indictment on the roster construction, on the setup of this program, of who is bringing guys in. And I know we dog on Tariq Francis a lot. He essentially saved the program with that game. He was the only, there were essentially 2 offensive options for this team against Penn. Give Tariq the ball and let him go on isolation and clear out and do something. And it worked out. I mean, he shot 9 of 14 and created a lot on himself. And the other was get to the free throw line. And they got to the free throw line, 100 times. I think Fran McCaffrey was about to hit 10 on the FranCon meter and punch a referee. He was so upset, as he should be. Actually, I think he wasn't as upset as he probably could have been. But my point is, other than that, there's nothing. They did not get one easy basket that I can remember. Everything was so hard. And then on the other end, they can't defend a pick and roll. They can't rebound a ball. There was one, I don't know if you watch the game every possession, Steve, but there was one possession late in the game where Penn is driving. They miss a shot and the ball bounces on the court. There's nobody in the vicinity of the rim to get a rebound. It bounces on the court twice before a Penn player scoops it up and just lays it in. I mean, it's just, it's bad. And again, this season is going to be, they're going to have a bad record. This is a bad team. And we're trying to judge them based on knowing that, right? Let's not beat a dead horse and say, oh, this team is so bad. But the way they played, the way they reacted to the way they played and the result of the game is just a really bad sign for me that, if I'm a Rutgers fan and I see that this coach is here for his 10th year and you want to be taken seriously as a program and you see that, it's hard to not feel embarrassed, right? No serious program is reacting that way to that game. I'm sorry. I was very surprised at how that all played out.
Well, what's he going to do if he can't? I mean, he knows he can't sit there and torch them because he knows they're not good enough. He doesn't have Will Wade's team, right? So he can't pull that card out, and it's not in his personality. I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of uncomfortable press conferences this year for this reason. He knows his team's no good at this point. He's a smart enough basketball guy to know that. So there's not much he can say. He's going to have a lot of these where he's just sitting there trying to come up with a way to answer questions that are not, you can't say much more than we're not good enough. That's going to be a problem. I do wonder, and you tell me this, I got to give Tariq Francis credit. He had what was just an awful start to that game against Seton Hall, punched in the face. Not the reason they lost that game, but certainly the reason they were in 11-0 hole early on against your rival in Newark, where he played for NJIT. It's just a tough situation. So give him credit for bouncing back to that. I think that we're not saying enough about that. Was a really good performance. I don't care who you're playing against. If you have a game like that, hit a game-winning shot, score 34 points. Good for him. Good for him. I wonder, if that can be transferable, if there's some hope that he might be not that good, but some level of that player in Big Ten play. And B, the other part of that is he has to do that because the guy they thought was going to do that, Dylan Grant, looks lost, right? That's the other part of this. I wonder about what happened to him? Why is he not dominating these teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess I'll preface it by an excellent point made by one of our users on Discord, JP Giro, who I wholeheartedly agree with, in that I don't fault the players, right? It's not their fault that they're in this. Some of them shouldn't be in this situation, right? Like some of them just shouldn't be on this roster at this level. But they're not the ones that decided to come here. They were offered the opportunity to come here, and they'd be silly not to take it, right? So I don't blame them, right? I mean, they have some blame, obviously, at some point because they're the ones playing the game. But to be some of them put in the positions where they frankly shouldn't be, it's not their fault, right? It's the person that or the people that put together the roster and put them in that position. So I want to be clear on that, right? Like good for Tariq Francis, a career game, carry them to a win. The win counts for something. Totally agree. To your point on Dylan Grant, yes, you'd think he was supposed to be the alpha of this team, the lead scorer, the person that when you're in that situation, you're getting dominated by Penn and you need someone to do something, that he would be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's not exactly playing in a system that is going to create opportunities for him. Like that's going to run an offensive set to put him in a position to score. It's a lot of isolation in this offense, as we said ad nauseum. And he's not a guy that's going to create off the dribble. He's not a guy that's going to put himself in a position to score. So he's going to have to essentially do the scrappy, get the rebound, get a putback, or get in position and try to get a dunk. Or he's not Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey who can create his own offense, is my point. So he's not really getting help in that sense. But I do agree that he only had 8 points. All of them came in the second half. He had 1 rebound in the first half, I think. That was Steve Pikiell's major point, is that he's not rebounding enough.
Right.
But he's not giving enough, and I think some of that is because they're not putting him in great positions to do that.
Right. And then as a result of that, and I agree with you not being put in great positions, but you're the best player on the team. You've got to demand it in some ways. You're seeing players who aren't that, like Zerno, taking before Francis, we would have been talking about that shot. If Francis hadn't come back, they hadn't missed the free throws, if Francis hadn't won the game, we would have been talking about the end game scenario where Zerno jacks up a running 20-footer early in the clock. You're like, what in the world? Why is A, he got the green light to take that, and B, that's your shot. So like, I just things I've never seen in that situation for a basketball team. You're like, what? That's what we're ending up with because of this hierarchy in this team where guys are just trying to fill the void.
I thought he was trying to get fouled. I haven't watched it back, to be completely honest, but it looked like at the time he thought there was a Penn player's hand in the area and he was trying to do a James Harden where you go up for the shot, you get contact, and you get that call.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. That's
what I thought. And he seemed very surprised he didn't get a whistle. And that would be smart, but I just think that's a bit ambitious to expect that call. But to your point, if he doesn't do that and they try to run something else, I mean, that's probably is the shot they're going to get that much better.
I know. Yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah.
But to your point, yes, like when you don't have your best player kind of taking over and you have one guy in Tariq Francis who's able to do that, but you don't have anybody else. Like Zerno is a guy that can score for you off the catch. If you create a situation where he has an open three, he can score like that. He can't do much else. JaMychal Davis, like we've seen this for 3 years now, but sometimes he'd get the ball, have a lane to the rim, drive, then a Penn player would come over and play help defense. And he wouldn't even try to go up to the rim because he knows he's toast. He just pulls up for a mid-range jumper. And again, I feel like I'm a broken record here, but the number of mid-range jumpers that I'm watching is just mind-numbing. And then Darren Buchanan has 3 baskets with some tough shots, and he has 3 turnovers, like silly turnovers too.
Yeah.
And it's just
they need more from him too. If they're going to be, absolutely. Yep.
They need more from everybody. But the question is, do they have more to give? And I'm not sure the answer to that.
All right. Well, we'll find out then at Delaware State, and then we're right in the thick of it. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. Let's do some football really quick. Some interesting news of the program. The best way you can talk about it. This entire both sides of this coaching change, I think, are worth discussing. And let's break it down to both sides. Each one separately. First, the decision to move on from who I think was the biggest name on the coaching staff, probably. I mean, a guy that both Rutgers fans and NFL fans and, like local football guys. He's like a New Jersey. People know Pat Flaherty, offensive line coach, 70 years old, Super Bowl champion, Giants, long resume. Rutgers moved on from him. And I think there's some confusion about that. And people just assumed, well, he must have retired. No, he didn't retire. And it must have been mutual. No, I don't think it was mutual. It was a decision not to renew his contract. What did you think about? Well, when you heard that news, were you surprised? I was surprised. Were you?
Yeah, for all the reasons you said, right? icon, and there's this idea that he revolutionized the offensive line, which he did to a certain extent. He took one of the worst units in the Big Ten and turned them middle of the pack. I think there's some exaggeration of how much he did to help the offensive line, but in his first year, certainly got them to a really good level, and they've declined slowly over the last couple of years. Some of that because this year, especially, the offense they ran, long developing plays, long pass plays, puts the offensive line in a rough position. They did give up 3 sacks a year this year, and they've kind of regressed each year that he's been here.
Some injuries too, in fairness. He had to shuffle the deck a couple of times. I mean, sure.
Totally fair. I'm not saying they were the worst offensive line in the Big Ten, but the sack numbers were ugly. The point being this, I guess if you listen back to our last episode, I did say that his contract expired and there was a chance there, but here's the thing. Coaches enter the last year of their contract without it being renewed for 2 reasons. It's maybe more than 2 reasons, but the 2 reasons I can come up with are it's a prove it year, right? Or things have run their course, right? And I think Pat Flaherty was beyond it being a prove it year. But once you get past July, August, which is the last time really where guys get their contract renewed, and it wasn't renewed, I think there's a clear sign there that there's an understanding. Greg Schiano respects Pat Flaherty. This wasn't a blind side to Pat Flaherty. Pat Flaherty knew by this point that he wasn't coming back. Greg Schiano did him the courtesy or had the respect for him to let him know that, right? And then his contract wasn't renewed. Pat Flaherty is turning 70 years old in April. 70 years old. I don't care how good of a coach you are. He's a human being, and things just aren't. When you're 70, you're not a 50-year-old guy anymore, right? And being a college coach is demanding, not only in game preparation, in working with your offensive coordinator, and developing players, but you have to do recruiting. Like, recruiting is still a thing. And Pat Flaherty did some of that, but it's not like he was on the road every weekend. And I just think that his time at Rutgers has run its course, which is fine. That's not to say Pat Flaherty is no longer a great coach. I just think Rutgers wanted some new blood and some new energy in that room. And while I understand why people were a bit befuddled by the decision, I don't think it was unfounded that he gave him 3 good years and they want something new in that room.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think we've talked about it again, like the easier decision for Greg Schiano would to just keep him, right? And like this is a sign of a coach who's demanding more from his program. We talk about it all the time with what didn't happen in basketball. I think it speaks to him looking at it and saying the offensive line play is not good enough. I mean, I think they don't want middle of the pack. They want to be, they want top of the Big Ten. Whether that's realistic with the players they have, I don't know. He saw a way to improve it, and this is where I was with it when I heard it. My thought was, well, let's see the next move, right? Like I just assumed he must have someone up his sleeve that would be, oh, okay, right? Like it would be, that makes sense. Now I get it. That didn't happen. I guess like I saw the person they hired, Jim Turner. We could review his resume if you want. Maybe best to do that before we go into this. But like I guess that hire wasn't one that I went, oh, I was just like, wait, what? Who is Jim Turner?
So Jim Turner has been in the USFL for the last 4 years, which is why this was something where Rutgers, could have courted him for a long time. I think this was a long time in the making. It's no surprise that it's 3 weeks after the end of the season and 3 days after Pat Flaherty is announced he's not coming back, that Jim Turner is announced that he's coming here. I will say that when something is announced is not necessarily when something was decided, right? So the Jim Turner deal.
Yeah, 8:30 on a Friday is when it was announced. Which tells you a little bit about it. Yeah,
that's no coincidence. We'll go into that part of it, obviously, in a bit. But the Jim Turner thing is he coached with Kirk Shiraka at Delaware about 20 years ago. And I think there is something to that in that Kirk knows what he wants from his offensive line. This guy knows what Kirk wants. And they have a working relationship prior to that. Kirk and Pat Flaherty didn't have that working relationship prior to this year. So not that they were an odd couple by any means, but my point is that they were learning as they went. Right. And I think that Kirk is going to get a guy he's comfortable with and knows they can work with, right? Mm-hmm. So Jim Turner, he's the big picture is he was in the NFL for a couple of teams. He coached 2 separate stints at A&M. He sent a lot of guys to the league from A&M, and he's been
Jermaine Illuminor. Giants fans will know was one of them. Swears by him. Yep.
Right tackle for the Giants, correct? Mm-hmm. I got a call from Fuchs yesterday after the Giants game telling me that Jerome told him that, or Jermaine told him that that Jim Turner changed his life. Mm-hmm. You would think Jim Turner was a reverend that turned his life around the way he talked about him. But anyway, okay, so I guess we'll get into why. So the name is not entirely overwhelming. It's not like they got this. They didn't get a Pat Flaherty name type of hire. But the other thing is also like, I don't know how good of an offensive line coach he is, but I certainly know that there are some baggage associated with him coming to Rutgers.
Right. Yeah. A good deal of baggage. Absolutely. Yeah. You want to break it down? I mean, we can go through it quick. He was on the Dolphins staff, Miami Dolphins, one of the bigger controversies of the 21st century, I guess, for the NFL. The bullying situation with Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito. If you guys don't remember that one, I mean, it was a firestorm for the NFL. And he was mentioned in the Wells report. Not a perfect, we've learned in the time since there's not a perfect investigation by any means, but Jim Turner's name came up in this. Just some difficult allegations about him there, clearly not career ending because he moved on to Texas A&M after that. He was in the NFL with the Bengals for a couple of years, but had subsequent controversies follow him there. At Texas A&M, there was another just kind of a dopey slideshow that he showed at a meeting with women. Explain it. I'm trying to come up with a way of phrasing it.
Right. So the Dolphins thing was just blatant homophobia, which I guess was more commonplace. Certainly, I mean, it still remains commonplace in college football and NFL locker rooms. Let's not pretend like these places are bastion of politically correct speech and progressive values. But especially 10 years ago, it was just blatant homophobia. And then at Texas A&M, they had an event essentially for women fans. I don't know if it's necessarily teaching them the game or whatever it is, but Chris Ash did a couple of them here at Rutgers as well, like nights for female fans to come around the program and be with the coaches and stuff like that. And it was just blatant misogyny and some pretty disgusting,
it's a good word for it. Yeah. You think it was a good idea to think it was funny to me, like when you look at it, and even if you thought it was funny, and even if 600 of the 700 people in the room thought it was funny, it's just, come on. It's you're in the 21st century, man. You just can't. You got to be smarter than that. It's just bad judgment.
Right. That's the best interpretation. That is, it's stupid. I think the more realistic interpretation is just blatant misogyny. Yes. Which, look, again, does that matter to college football players in their 18s to 22-year-olds? I guess maybe not. Like to them, if the guy's a good offensive line coach, he's a good offensive line coach. People will overlook that. People will excuse it, saying that he was in the Marines and he's a old school football coach and yada yada. And ultimately, it won't matter if they're a good offensive line. I struggle with it a little bit because you talk about having a program with values that wanting to teach these players to be men and good fathers and good men and all these things. And then you have a guy who multiple stops across multiple years. There's some pretty disgusting things. I just don't know how that balances. And I think that that turns to why this was announced at 8:30 on a Friday. Yeah. And you notice that no national reporters, people that usually break the coaching news, they didn't touch this news. They weren't given this news, maybe because you don't want this to be a national news that you hired a guy with this baggage. So these things are coincidences. So I think people understand, it's not entirely a good look. Ultimately, if the guy can coach the line, if Rutgers is giving up 1 sack a game instead of 3 next year, nobody's going to care about all that.
Well, yeah, assuming there's not another one, right? Like he was at Texas State a few years ago, and something. I mean, again, no one covers Texas State, but there was a tweet that said something controversial was said there. We're trying to find more details about it. We don't have it now in time for the show. And I guess that's where it comes. This is a risk averse program, and you're inviting a risk here. You're potentially adding a controversy. Right. And if you look in the long history of Rutgers, when Rutgers hires someone who could potentially become a headache, Pat Hobbs, Julie Herman, go the long list of people, that person typically becomes what I'm saying? Like, it's very rare that, it worked out well. That might be the case here. We may never hear the name Jim Turner again if the offensive line's good, if like you mentioned, if they're protecting the passer better, if it's just, you're just putting your program, you're inviting it in. And my question, I guess, is, He just didn't become available, Brian, right? Like, this is a guy who's been out there a couple of years. You would think other programs would be looking at it. Maybe they were, but we don't have any information on that. It just seems like the timing of it. And again, who are you replacing him with? Like, you're trading Pat Flaherty, impeccable reputation. Don't care how old he is. Like, people work into their 70s all the time now. Impeccable reputation for this. And it's got to work. Like, the line's got to be better. The controversies can't be there. Greg Schiano's, this certainly not like a big thing. We're not going to be talking about this every week, but it is it's potential to be something that could be a problem.
I think the best case scenario is that he's been in the USFL and Texas State for the last 5 years because of these scandals, because no one wanted to take a chance and give him the Nick Saban school for rehabilitating coaches situation. And Rutgers is the first one that is willing to give him a chance. And maybe, look, people can change. I'm not entirely convinced most people will change, but certainly the guy is going to have a clean slate at Rutgers. And from an offensive line standpoint, right, I am willing to see how this can be an upgrade because he's 10 years younger. He's a fiery guy, whatever controversies aside, like, he is a passionate guy, as you can see in his videos, kind of instructing on Twitter. And he'll get the offensive line juiced up. It's a new voice in the room. It's a more energetic, younger guy. And I mean, I'm sure Rutgers has an idea of how good of a football coach he is, and they feel good about that. So again, I think this could work out. I do think that there are probably other offensive line coaches that are as good that don't have as much baggage. But again, do people really care? I think I think it matters. I think, to be fair, we might be exaggerating its importance. And I think there are people listening to this podcast that say, who cares? Why are these NJ.com guys making a big deal as always? And I think that's a fair point of view. I just think, and again, I can't say this enough. Like, there are a lot of football coaches. I would say a majority of football coaches probably think similar to this guy. This guy's not a unique bird.
Oh, I don't think a majority. That's not fair. That's not fair. I think we've moved on past. This is not 1984 at some high school, and this is society has changed. That shit is just not acceptable anymore. It's not. I get it. Maybe it was. It's not. It's just not. And I think these teams have professionalized to a point where that stuff, like, we're going to motivate with this tough guy stuff, it's just completely unnecessary. It's no longer, it's not a coaching tactic anymore. It's just not. It can prove me wrong on that one. I think we've moved. I think football has moved past that in a lot of ways. Hope.
There are probably a lot less meatheads than there used to be, but there's a lot of meatheads still, right? And it is what it is. But I think we've beaten this horse to death and beyond. But I think I'll be interested to hear what people think. Leave comments in the comment section with your thoughts, guys, and let us know. Either way, if you agree or disagree. But I think we could all agree it's certainly a topic worth discussion.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We want to do a year in review quickly. This will be our last show of the year, yeah, I mean, it's not sugarcoating a difficult year for Rutgers athletics. I think in a lot of ways, certainly the basketball team has been disappointing. Football, expectations were better than 5-7 this year. And not a lot of other highlights, Brian. I mean, I guess if you were looking for it, and I guess this is what I put down, we can come up with a highlight, a low light, and an athlete of the year. You want to start with a highlight? I mean, for you, what stands out in your mind as the moment, the signature moment, the highlight of Rutgers this year?
I mean, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, to be honest with you, because one team, and I could be wrong, but from my recollection, my quick research before this episode, one team made the NCAA tournament. And of all of them, of all 22 programs it could be, it was gymnastics, which is remarkable. Just remarkable.
Why would that be?
I don't know. It's just amazing. I wouldn't say that making the NCAA tournament and then choking against Clemson is necessarily a highlight. I guess we can go Chloe Timberg getting the silver medal at the NCAA championships, trying to defend her national title. Right. Second nationally isn't that bad. And then there's the rowing program winning a regatta in England. That's not NCAA sanctioned, but it was enough to be able to ring the bells, which is something that it does not happen very often here at Rutgers. So if I had to pick, again, scraping the bottom of the barrel, I'm not sure how many people knew or frankly cared about that, but that's what I would say is the highlights.
Yeah, I think on the field, you're probably right. I will make my choice off the field stuff. I think the change in leadership will turn out to be the highlight of this year for Rutgers. And, certainly wasn't a smooth process. We don't need to go in all that again. But, bringing in a president who understands what has to happen athletically for this place to be a success in William Tate. And I think more than that, ending up with Kelly Zinn as athletic director. We've already seen some of the things she's done behind the scenes. I think if things work out, if this turns out to be not a mirage and the pieces are in place, and in a couple of years we're talking about successful teams, if we're not scraping, if we're not trying to look up crew regattas in England for our highlight of the year, we'll look back on this year and we'll say, okay, well, that's when it started to turn. That's when things got into place. That's when they started to behave like a Big Ten institution finally again, when they caught up with the competition. I think that's what we're going to look at. So for me, it was bringing in Kelly's in. It was that press conference where she stood up there, after President Wynn gave it win after that moment, and she answered the questions like someone who knew exactly what to do here. Like, none of this, just so in complete command from day one. I think that's what we'll look back on as the positive from 2025. It's not a lot right now, but if 2 years it all goes well, it'll look pretty good.
It'll be a seminal moment either way. It will be the moment we look back on, if it goes well, as the person that finally turned this around, or and this is because of how highly I think of Kelly. If it doesn't work out, I think it'll be another moment where we look back and say, "There's no hope in this place." If she can't figure it out, this is a Herculean task that very, very few people can fix. So either way, it'll be a seminal moment.
Right. You got a low light?
I mean, this is the harder one to pick because there's so many options. I think just in general, the basketball season, the end of the 24-25 basketball season, we could probably look at it as the death of the Steve Pikiell era, if we're being honest. There is always a chance to turn it around. There's miracles possible. But the moment that team didn't make the NCAA tournament, ended with a losing record with 2 NBA draft picks, kind of cemented a legacy and really marked the beginning of the end for Steve Pikiell.
Yeah, for me, it's the same one, but specifically, it is walking into that cramped locker room in Indianapolis after they lost that game to Southern Cal, and just seeing Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper crowded in the corner and trying to conduct interviews in just a defeated, deflated, awful situations, journalist, but just overall, just the vibe, just how that just felt like this shouldn't be where it had ended, and the way it ended, and the date that it ended. I mean, early March. Just so much about that to me, spoke to what had happened that year, and seeing those two, especially sitting next to each other with their heads down, and just knowing that was the last time they're going to wear that uniform. And seeing what they've already become, especially Dylan Harper, on the NBA stage, makes it a little harder. I do think 5 years from now, we will look back and that when the pain of what happened fades, I think there will be some pride in knowing they came to Rutgers. I don't think we're there yet. But that to me stands as the low light moment. And it's one of it is a low light, not just for this year. It is one that can, in my 25 years doing it, I can't remember a more depressing feeling. Not many of them, at least around Rutgers. Athlete of the year, you want to pick somebody? Who do you got?
Well, I think we could still go through a little bit more lowlights. I think we're skipping through. I mean, the last 8 minutes of the Penn State game. Just the image seared in my mind of Ethan holding his helmet as Penn State runs back that fumble.
That's a good one.
The image of Greg Schiano standing outside the tunnel, holding hands on his hips and kind of taking in what the hell just happened, and the feeling of lost opportunity again is a big one. A disappointing women's soccer season for the first time in a decade. And Rutgers finishing 80th in the Directors' Cup, which is going to look really good this year, this coming June, when they're back in the hundreds based on how this year has started. So no, we don't have to, but I think I think it's worth highlighting how bad things are right now, so that if and when they turn things around, you can look back and see, they came a long way.
Yeah. Who's your athlete of the year?
It's got to be
mentioned Chloe Timberg. Can you come up with somebody else?
It's got to be Chloe Timberg, right? But somebody else, Dylan Harper, maybe. For carrying that team to 15 wins.
Yeah, but still, just for brilliance on the court. Just it was impossible not to watch. I'm going to go with Ethan Kaligmanis. I think he is. And for a lot of reasons, not just for elevating that position and playing at a high level, but for being a class act too. And it didn't end the way he wanted it to, and certainly that's another low light. Him dropping the ball at that moment against Penn State, sort of for me, crystallizes what this year was. I mean, if you want one single vision of what this year was, that was it for Rutgers. I mean, in a lot of ways, just, here's a potential. We're on the precipice of something we haven't done in a very long time. And, no one stopping us, but fate, but a mistake, but the wind, but whatever it was, right? Like it wasn't like Penn State came up and knocked it out of his hands. It wasn't like, the basketball team got beaten by better. It wasn't, what I'm talking about? It's just like a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Like it was right there in a lot of ways for Rutgers in multiple teams, multiple scenarios. And the only thing they have to blame is just cruel luck or themselves or whatever you want to call it. That's kind of one way to look back on this year.
I agree. This was the year, the last 18 months were the years, quote unquote, of what could have been. Right? Like, had they not botched the entire basketball season, had they not, botched the defensive coordinator hired for this year, had they not gotten, hurt a ton in 2024 and wasted what's going to be the easiest schedule they will ever have in the Big Ten and end up with only 7 wins. Just 3 major missed opportunities that, certainly for basketball will take a long time to recover from, and football, you only get so many of these opportunities. It's going to sting for a long time.
All right. There's our year in review. Even the dog's upset about it. All right. Let's dive into some questions. We have some good ones, some really interesting, introspective questions about the future here. And I love this one. I love hypotheticals. We talk hypotheticals on this show. I don't know about the rest of the world, but if a stork dropped a one-time sack of cash that had to be used toward basketball, and it was the exact amount of money needed to buy out Steve Pikiell, would that be better spent straight into NIL or in firing Steve Pikiell and changing the coaches? Thoughts?
So is this a one-time $22 million payment to fire Steve Pikiell and Brandon Knight? Is that what we're saying?
That's what it said. Yeah. Or you could funnel it into NIL.
Well, the question then is, do you think Steve Pikiell with a $10 to $12 million NIL budget would be able to compete for a Big Ten title? That's the question.
I mean, I think that's better than bringing in a new coach and giving him Steve Pikiell's budget. If those are the two options, then yeah, I would give him the cash, see what happens. I mean,
Yeah, I guess if this very narrow hypothetical.
The stork did not leave a note, Brian. I'm looking at it. It's just a pile of cash. Sorry, the stork does not have instructions.
Well, I mean, if I was, I guess what I would do is I'd take that $22 million and save it for NIL and then find money some other way to fire Steve Pikiell and hire a good coach and then use that money for NIL, right? Because the other two scenarios are you give a coach that has really struggled to put a team together in the NIL era a lot of money and hope that with more money he suddenly can get a better team together, or you fire him, hire a new coach, and hope that with whatever horrible budget the previous coach had, he'll be able to make, diamonds from nothing, which are both bad. So I guess you save the money for an NIL budget for the new coach, and you find the money somewhere else to fire the current coach.
How about this? No, this is a better option. Give the money to the program. Like, I think if you could give the team to Steve Pikiell, and this will be a debate in the Discord, I'm sure, but if you could just give the good team to Steve Pikiell after someone else built it, how about that scenario? It doesn't say, it says better served going straight into NIL. It doesn't say that he has to be the one to pick the team. Maybe you give that Rob Sullivan, give him $12 million and say, go pick a team.
I don't know if Rob Sullivan will be given that autonomy. And 2, are we like, let's not anoint Rob Sullivan as Brad Stevens just yet. All right. Like I trust him more to build a team than Steve Pikiell. Certainly. I'm not convinced quite yet, especially when his attention is split between the women's and the men's basketball team. Right. He's got 2 messes to clean up. Let's pump the brakes there. But yeah, I think that's within the realistic bounds of this hypothetical. I guess that is the best solution.
All right. Another hypothetical. I love them. Keep the hypothetical. In an alternate world where Greg Schiano was the basketball coach. I'm all in on that already. I love it. How different does this roster look the past few years? Is there any shot he lets Cam Spencer, Paul McKay, Mawot Mag, Cliff Omori leave? How much better with talent does he get around Dylan and Ace? How many coaches would he have churned through the past few years? Okay, well, that's great. That's a great question. I will say this, and this is something that, Greg Schiano had an advantage when NIL started and Pat Hobbs threw up his hands and said, no, thank you, that Steve Peichel didn't have, and that he had a thicker Rolodex of people understanding the dynamic of it and more of a salesman, just a natural salesperson, someone who is good at that part of the job and convincing, people that there's, that they can, but he's good at it. He's I think he would sell you a used car better than Steve Peichel a million times over. So I do think he would have more funding. He would not have been in the situation that, that Rutgers was in. But what does it take? What would it take to keep Cam Spencer? I don't know. Paul Mulcahy. Some of these guys, were ready for change already. Like, would Cliff have stayed for $1 million? Maybe. But I think he was also one eye at the door the moment that season started. Like, I don't think he was thinking like it was a real decision. I think he wanted to move on. Like, some of these guys wanted to move on. Cam Spencer, look what happened. Like, how can you second guess Cam Spencer's decision? No matter how much money he got on UConn, he's now the best Rutgers guy in the pros, like other Dylan and A's, right? He's like, so I don't know. I think that it's a tough hypothetical, Brian. But do you think that Greg Schiano would have made a difference?
Well, it's a tough hypothetical because does Greg Schiano hire Brandon Knight, who ultimately is the reason both Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are at Rutgers, right?
No
and
chance. He does no chance.
Here's what I will say to answer this complicated question in a simplistic way is that if there anything that Greg Schiano does really well in the NIL era, it's raising money, and to a certain degree, obviously, it's within the bounds of the idea that you're raising money at Rutgers, and two, retention. He's really good at retention. So this question specifically was, will he be able to retain those guys? I think he'd have a better chance of retaining Mawot and Cliff Omori. Certainly, I think Mawot was certainly ready to move on. I think Cliff, you probably have a chance if you're in the vicinity of the money, right? Like, they weren't even close to what Alabama was offering.
Right.
So to answer the question, I think they'd have a better chance. I don't know if they would. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit
I just wish we don't have a lot of examples of guys, like, from the football standpoint. I think a lot of guys stayed here because they weren't looking for the biggest payday in football. Like, they were looking for the complete package of playing time, comfort, fit, the sense that they were going to get a better chance. And Kyle Monangai is a great example. That all worked out for him. Like, if he had went somewhere for a bigger payday and ended up on the third string running back at Alabama, as opposed to, a guy who was just put a million great plays on tape that got that allowed the Bears to overlook, whatever numbers he was running, whatever other stuff that these coaches, these GMs try to convince themselves are more important than production. Like, he may not been in the NFL. Certainly not the level he is now. Who knows? Right? I think some guys understand this, but not everybody. So that's a good question.
Different sports too. I mean, not to break that down too much, but that lens is important as well. That basketball and football are completely different worlds.
Yep. Here's another good question about retention. Obviously, there's still a chunk of the season to go, but if you had to guess, based on what you've seen the first dozen games, how many men's basketball scholarship players with eligibility do you expect to return? If I set the over-under at 4.5, what would you take? Wow.
It's a hard question because it's like, how many of these guys do you want to stay?
Well, that's it. That's the entire question. Yeah.
I mean, also, how many of these guys that you want to stay, do they want to stay? Like, let's say you want Dylan Grant to stay. Does he want to stay?
Let's say you can keep everybody. You're capable. It's if you want them to stay, they stay. How many do you want to stay?
Dylan Grant, assuming that you get a couple of better players than him, he can't be your best player again. Chris Newley, I feel really good about his development, like where he can be down the line. Lino Mark could be a serviceable, backup point guard down the line. I don't have the roster in front of me, but Bryce Dortch could be kind of, again, your 11th, 12th guy.
Two Europeans?
the 2 Europeans, one of them probably, I mean, Herman Zerno's stock is rising. Dennis Badalow has started 2 straight games and played a combined 9 minutes. That's another head scratching thing we didn't talk about, but
Right.
the rotations are confounding to me. But yeah, I mean, none of those guys I just listed are guys that, the foundation of the program depends on keeping those guys.
Mhm.
I think if you do what Seton Hall did last year and essentially flip over your entire roster, you might be in a better position.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good take, and I imagine that I'm going to take the over on that because I think Steve Peichel has to. Like, I don't think you can sell what's going to happen this year and then say, oh, we're going to start over. Like, you have to sell them the idea that we're drilling down on a couple of guys here. We have built some of the foundation in this program, and that's got to be your identity. That's what you've talked about. That's what Rutgers was under you when it was good. And I get it, things have changed, but you've got to keep some of those guys in place.
But then you put yourself in a weird position where in an ideal world, the guys that are coming back are the foundation and leaders of your team, but you need better players. So you're going to pay better players more money than your returning players to be the alphas on the court, but your returning players are kind of the foundation and leaders of the program. It's just a juxtaposition that I'm not sure works, which is why I think Seton Hall did the right thing, cleaned house, took everyone out that didn't fit the culture and the talent level that was needed, which was, again, essentially the entire roster, and then just fill in guys that are better and start from scratch. That's now the question. Obviously, is Rutgers going to have the financial ability to do that? That's obviously the big question. And if they don't, then they're DOA anyway. But I just think this is a very complicated mixture to figure out.
Similar to men's basketball returning player question, how many coaching staff changes, if any, do you expect next offseason? Over under 1.5?
Does that include the head coach?
No one's. Yeah, the head coach is coming back. Yeah, coaching changes.
I think if this is a functioning program and you want to feel positive going forward, over. I think if it follows the pattern of what it's been for the last decade, under.
Yeah, it's going to be under. I think so too, because I think there's going to be an understanding that we're going to give you the money, you've got to figure it out, and Steve Peichel's not going to say, "Oh, well, gee, I better make some changes here around me." I think he's at least I'm not seeing that, and I don't know if you're Kelly's in. Do you go in there and you demand it, or do you say, "Okay, coach, this is a make or break year. We got to see some results. Here's some money. Here's some funding. Here you go." Yeah, it's a good question. It's like a really, and it is a philosophical, because very rarely does that work when an AD goes in there and says, "You got to fire some coaches." Like that's something that an owner of an NFL team will do. You got to get rid of your defensive coordinator if you want to come back, like stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not sure that it's going to work in this situation.
It's a test of stubbornness and willing to adapt, because if you look at what the product this program has put out the last 3 years or the last 10 years offensively, and you don't think they need fresh eyes, somebody to go in there and draw up a set, draw up something other than horns, and try to get some offensive creativity to elevate this team beyond its talent, because it's probably going to be less talented than the majority of the team as it plays. Mm-hmm. Right? If you don't see what's happening and you don't feel like, all right, we need to make a change and add somebody here that can call up a play, then they're kind of, again, they're DOA, right? Like, not I won't call it individual coaches, but there are people on that staff that, they're stealing a paycheck, frankly, right? So I think if this is a functioning program, at least one, maybe 2 guys, maybe 3 guys swap, but we'll see in 3 months.
All right, last question. Any idea on the hiring process for football coaches? Does Shannon have carte blanche to hire whoever he wants? Do the new hires go through Rutgers HR? I wonder how Kelly's in feels about the new coach who was suspended for demeaning women. We do not know the answer to that question. I will say this, like if it's a big number, it's got to go through the Board of Governors. We've seen that happen with Kirk Shiraka. If it's over, I think $1 million, right? Or more than the president makes. What was the? I
think you're correct. I used to think it was 1 million, but the president now makes more than $1 million.
Yeah,
so if it's at or above the president's salary, the Board of Governors has to approve it. That's talking head coaches, offensive and defensive coordinators. Like, that's the level you have to reach to.
Yeah, I haven't gotten the sense that Kelly's in at the point where she is getting involved in stuff like this, and I don't know that she would.
I would say Criano has carte blanche, essentially, right? Unless they were trying to hire a guy that's 10 times more controversial than this guy, where you need like university approval. And they go through HR because every employee at Rutgers goes through HR. That was one of the reasons I was told it took so long to get the announcement out there, and why it came out on 8:30 on a Friday. It may be a reason. It's not the reason. Let's be realistic here, but they do go through HR. I'm sure there are once it reaches a certain level, there are conversations with the athletic director. I think she's certainly more involved than Pat Hobbs was. But contrary to what some people think and hope, I don't think Kelly Zinn is dictating to any of her coaches, you have to hire this guy. You have to make this change on your staff. I think it's mostly carte blanche.
Right. All right. Good questions. Appreciate it. Thank you for chiming in. That's all we got. You got any final thoughts? Women's basketball? What else is happening here in the world?
So before we get to women's basketball, I have a quick one we didn't mention before. So Bo Mascow was the first major name to enter the transfer portal. And I think I'll use that as the launching pad just to talk about, the portal. So generally speaking, right, there are buckets of players that enter the portal, right? And now that you have money introduced, like that's a factor here. So when you're evaluating whether you want to keep a guy, whether you want to add a guy or whatever, every position has a certain range of value. Every player has a certain range of value. And for a program, ideally, you find players that fit both the money that you want to spend on them and how good they are, right? Some players think they are worth more than they are making and worth more than the program is willing to give them. So they feel they want to go in the portal and pursue other opportunities, other programs that will pay you more money. That's their right. And that's the program's right to not want to pay the money. And then there are players that enter the portal because they know they have no path to playing time. And they're not making enough money just to justify just sitting on the bench and not playing for a year. So they go into the portal. There are players that go into the program. This is a business now. So they churn out the bottom of the roster too. If you're not playing within a year or two, there's no sense to keep a guy around. And if a guy wants to stay and sit on the bench and make a couple $100,000 or whatever the money is, the program's not going to want to spend the money on them. So they enter the portal as well. So I think Bo Mascow clearly is a situation of he thinks he's worth more money. Right. The program does not think they can't meet in the middle of what they believe the value is and what is satisfactory for the player. So the player goes to explore his options on the open market. And I guess we'll see what I like to refer to as the Jose Mourinho line, talking about football heritage. Look at the former players we have. Look at where they play, how they play, if they play, right? So you look at Wesley Bailey. He went to Louisville. He played a lot. Rene Conga. He went to Louisville. He played a lot. Mo Touré went to Miami. Made a game-saving tackle on the goal line. Humongous play, right? Those are players you lose and you think, okay, that's a loss for the program. And then there are players that go to Akron and Toledo and are never heard of again.
The vast majority of them are in the latter category.
Right. So just when you're evaluating, I know now there are 10-page threads on like, oh my God, we lost this guy. The program is doomed. It's over. Wait 10 months and look what happens next fall. And look at who Rutgers gets in the portal. And then we can do a big picture evaluation, much like the Pat Flaherty situation. It's understandable to melt down now, but cooler heads 10 months from now, let's do a more holistic evaluation. And since we're not going to have an episode until the portal opens again. The portal opens on January 2nd. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to ask you, what are your current, we don't know the answer to this right now, as of 11:04 on Monday, December 22nd. What are your feelings about the big three? Are they, or are they not coming back to Rutgers? Will any of them enter the portal?
I think two of the big three will definitely be back. Definitely, as close as definitely I can get you. I think Raymond and Duff are back. I think if Strong leaves, it's to the NFL, and they don't have to declare that until, isn't it mid-January? When is the date for that? So I think
so. The portal closes in mid-January, so either way, you'll know if he's going to transfer or not.
Yeah, and I think we're leaning in the direction he'll be back too. So optimistic on the big three. We've heard nothing to lead us in the other direction. Put it that way. And we typically kind of get the vibes. There's vibes going around that. So I don't know. I don't think we're getting that with these three.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. I'm a little less optimistic than you in the sense that I think Raymond is back. Right, I would be surprised if Raymond goes. And I think Strong. I agree with you almost wholeheartedly that it's pretty much NFL or not. And I think KJ Duff will be back. But KJ Duff is the level of prospect where at any point, Miami, Notre Dame, name an SEC program, can throw an absurd amount of money at him. And that is not easy. That is not easy to turn down. And I think Rutgers will have a competitive offer. But if someone goes Daddy Warbucks and just opens the checkbook, I think for KJ Duff, I will not feel confident he's coming back until A, he posts the graphic that he re-signed with Rutgers and his paperwork is inked, or B, the portal closes and the option is no longer there. Because he is a guy that if he enters the portal, that's a top 100 prospect making a lot of money.
Yep.
So that's the other two, though. I feel pretty. If you're Antoine Raymond, there's no reason to leave. You're going to get 100 carries a game, and you're going to go the Kyle Monangai route.
In some ways, if you're looking around, in some ways, it just makes sense to do it. Like if my son was KJ Duff, I'd be like, here, you're in the portal. Like, right? I mean, let's just see what we get. I get loyalty, I get time, but let's take some offers.
The advantage for Rutgers is that KJ Duff's mother really loves Rutgers, really loves the staff. He's from Long Island. They're really close. They can come to every home game. He's going to be the feature receiver on this team next year. Right? But to your point, and the other thing with KJ Duff is that he'll make a lot of money in the NFL if he keeps going this direction. Like, he's going to be a guy.
Yep.
So there's a lot of factors to look at, but he's certainly like the number one like guy on this roster, the most talented and the most valuable. So we'll see. I think that's the linchpin of the offseason. And then for between now and just this January 2nd, we'll see some other players enter the portal, like some bottom of the roster guys who I'm sure most fans, outside of the hardcore of hardcore who follow recruiting like a sport, they're gonna be like, who? Like Rendrick Doralis went into the portal yesterday. Have you ever heard of this kid?
I'm afraid not.
Right. No. I think that's the reaction for most of them. I don't expect anyone Bo Mascow level to enter the portal between now and January, but I could be wrong. We'll see.
All right, let's wrap it up there. We can talk basketball all winter, including women's basketball, everything else going on. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Brian. Even though you haven't watched any of the holiday movies, I think you are still deserving of having a wonderful holiday. Got big plans?
I don't. Spending time with my family and my loved ones, which is always the spirit of Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas as well, Steve. I hope you have a good time. And I wish all of our audience a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you for the gift of watching me and Steve ramble for an hour every week. It's a miracle that people do that. Thank you for the 1,000 subscribers. That's an excellent Christmas gift for us. Please keep subscribing and liking our videos. And excited for 2026. I think the podcast will grow bigger. Happy New Year to all. And share in the comments what you want to see in 2026 because we're open to suggestions.
I see a comment right now. It says more holiday movie talk. Oh, who would have guessed? Just kidding. That's not really there. All right, everybody. Thanks again. We love you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Everything else you celebrate. We'll be back after the new year.